back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So over these next couple videos, I'm going to be doing a little mini series on details for moving abroad, specifically to Ethiopia, because that's my experience and that's what I can speak to. Yeah, so I know that there are a few of you, maybe a lot of you, who watch this channel who saw me and my family in Ethiopia and you know, admired that move, or maybe desired something similar for yourself or for your family, and had some questions regarding, you know, what life is really like there in terms of cost of living, for housing, food, education if you have children, quality of life, those types of things. So over the next couple videos, I'm going to try and answer some of those questions the best I can. And I am multitasking. I have my breakfast here and some coffee because my mom is watching my baby, and I'm trying to, you know, get this video done at the same time as eating my breakfast and, you know, while he's occupied. So excuse me if I'm eating while talking. All right, so this specific video is going to be about housing in Ethiopia, specifically in Addis Ababa. Because that is where we were. So if you are coming from a Western country and you are moving with a family to Ethiopia, or even if you're moving by yourself, you may be looking for certain standards in your living, what is it called? Your whatever, the house that you're living in. You may be looking for certain types of bathrooms or kitchen setups, other things you may not be thinking of, Wi-Fi, access, electricity, water, consistency, all of that. So I will start off by saying it is going to be difficult to find a one-for-one match of a Western lifestyle in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, for a cheaper price. With that being said, though, there are options. You know, if you're coming for, if you know why you're coming out of the West and into another nation, maybe in Africa, then you should come with an open mind, recognizing that, you know, it might not be exactly the same. Everything might not be perfect. There will be challenges, but the pros of being there and having your family outside of the West, outside of the Babylonian system, are going to outweigh the cons. So let's get into specifics. If you are thinking about moving to Addis Ababa, Addis is expanding. It's really quite large, much larger than it was when I first arrived there about 10, 11 years ago. And so there's a lot of vast new neighborhoods to choose from. So many, I would say, foreigners, Westerners live on more the eastern side of Addis. And those neighborhoods are called CMC, Summit, Bole, and, you know, a few throughout Mexico and Sarbet and those places. But for the most part, I think the newcomers, the newer people arriving to Addis and from Western countries, are settling around the Summit area. The reason for that is the electricity and the water is more consistent on those sides of town, from what I heard. We were on the western side of Addis, which is more occupied. If you go all the way as west as you can to Addis, and to a sub-city called Lebu, that's more so occupied by Ethiopian diaspora. So people who were born in Ethiopia, moved abroad, and either came back or are investing money there. It is a really great place to be, but that side of town is still kind of developing. Okay, So I guess I'll leave it there for neighborhoods and sides of town. If you have other questions, please email me, and I'll put my email up on the screen here so that you can see it and send me email. So moving on from neighborhoods, housing. So as you saw probably in some of my videos, we looked at several houses, much more actually than I showed on the videos, and moved a couple times. Our first house was a very large house, way west, on the west side of Addis, actually slightly outside of the Addis Ababa boundary line. So it was actually in Oromia. And the house was okay. We didn't really have an issue with the house. It was the surrounding neighborhood where we were. We didn't have much access to transport. It wasn't very walkable. Like I could not, get out and go get my groceries very easily on my own or take the kids out. So it just wasn't suitable for, I would say, a family, especially a family who is coming from outside of Ethiopia. So we moved from that bigger house into the boundary lines of Addis. And so that's where the price range is going to jump. And I'll get into prices in just a moment. But finding a house that size within the boundaries of Addis is going to be difficult. That was a nice house with pretty good compound space. So within the boundaries of Addis, a house of that size is more difficult to find for a reasonable price. So we had been paying about, I believe it was 25,000 birr per month for that giant house that we were in Oromia, just outside of Addis. I don't know the conversion offhand, but I will put that on the screen. And when we moved inside of Addis, we went into an apartment which was much smaller. Obviously it had 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a kitchen, living room, and balcony area. That ran us, I believe it was about $500 a month. So we were paying, I guess it was similar to what the big house was outside of Addis, because in the birr conversion it was about 27,000 birr per month, if my memory serves me correctly. So yeah, so I guess for the bigger house it was around 500 something dollars a month, which doesn't sound like a lot if you are earning money in dollars, but if you're earning money in birr, that is a lot. And the reason is because you owe most of the times the full year of rent up front. Like as soon as you sign the paperwork, you have to pay the money for the 12 months of rent. So that can be a lot for people if you don't have enough savings. But if you want to be in Addis and you don't really want to live an apartment type of lifestyle with a family, the price is just going to go up from there. And the $500 rate, I think it was $546 or something like that we were paying monthly, was actually a really good price for that location. It was a brand new building, and I think the owners weren't really sure where the pricing should be at, and they were kind of new into the housing leasing market, and so that was just their starting point. But I think, and we were like very close we were in Lebu, in a growing, busy, bustling town, very close to the main road, so it was like prime location. And so I'm pretty sure the price has gone up even since we were there. But like I said, if you are gonna live on the other side of Addis, where water and electricity are more stable and consistent, and there are more foreigners on that side of town, you are going to be paying at least $1,000 a month, and you're going to need to have 12 months of rent up front in most cases, and it could be much more than that. And so that's something really to consider if you're planning to move to Ethiopia or live within the capital city of Addis Ababa. And I would also say, um, keep in mind that the quality of the home, so I spoke on this a little bit earlier, even if it's a really big house, we saw a lot of houses, big houses, small houses, and everything in between. And sometimes we would come in and they would be asking like 100,000 birr or something ridiculous, which I believe at the time was like $2,000 a month or something. And the kitchen would be falling apart, or it would just have issues, and it was like, well, this isn't gonna work. And so people I don't think there are any regulations on rent caps, anything like that. So it was challenging. It really was challenging to find something that we felt comfortable in and that was the right price, that we felt was fair for what we were going to be getting in return. The other thing I will mention is dalalas. So those are basically the realtors who, you make contact with them. They'll take you around, show you the house, and, such and so forth. A concept we're familiar with in the West. In Ethiopia, and I've heard this is true about dalalas even in other African countries, oftentimes they haven't even seen the house. So they don't know what they're going to be showing you. Somebody asked them to rent it out and they agreed to do it, and they're bringing you to this house. And sometimes you're like, I need 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, there's only 2 bedrooms here. Where's the other bedroom? They're like, oh, it doesn't have another one, So that can be a challenge too, working with these dalalas, these realtors. Sometimes they'll bring you to a house and they don't even have access to the key. They can't get inside. So, that's also a challenge when you're trying to get something done during the day, trying to find a place to live. You're like, well, why is this taking so long? Why is this much longer than it should be? So that's something to really keep in mind when you're looking for a house within Addis Ababa. And there are other places to live in Ethiopia outside of Addis. Like I said, I can't really speak to that too much, but I believe the prices are better, a little bit better, outside of the capital city. And you can get more for your money outside of the city. But just keep in mind that you may have trouble with access to certain things outside of the capital. And there are certain malarious zones that are outside of Addis Ababa. So there's no malaria within the capital. And so those are just some things to keep in mind when looking for housing. What else can I add about this? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, those are the main neighborhoods that I pointed out within Addis Ababa. Those are pretty much like the price ranges. Just keep in mind, I would say $1,000 a month and up. If you want something like really nice, really modern, it's probably going to be above 2,000. I mean, and everything's negotiable. You would be able to negotiate, but you have to have good negotiation skills. And I'd probably say, if you're not Ethiopian, work with an Ethiopian that you know and trust to help you negotiate and get better prices. But at the end of the day, the best thing to do, if you're able to, is buy land and build your own house. That's the most economical in the long run, because housing is going to be the largest chunk of your monthly budget if you're renting. And so, unless you have children and you're sending them to like a really expensive international school. But for the most part, housing is going to be the biggest chunk of your budget. So if you have your own house that's already built, and you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to pay a mortgage, you own it outright, you will be able to live much more easier and stress-free, because food isn't relatively that expensive. Clothes and things are not relatively that expensive. So if you're able to purchase land and build your own house. That is what I would 100% recommend, even above buying a house that's already built. Because if you're buying a house that somebody else built, they're gonna charge you double, maybe triple what they spent to even build it, and then the quality may not be great, and so you're dealing with somebody else's house that you probably paid way too much for that has a bunch of problems. So buying your own house, or buying your own land and building your own house, is what I would recommend. Lastly, before I get off this video and before it ends up being way too long, I would say, that's why it's trying to bother me. Thank you, Micah. So I would say, lost my train of thought. Land, the cost of land. It's very expensive. If you're gonna buy land in Addis Ababa, you can expect to pay probably, I don't know, with this exchange rate, maybe between $40,000 to $50,000 just for the land. So it's a pretty steep cost. So it's something that you're gonna have to save and budget for if that is a goal of yours. And then building the house will probably cost another, depending on what the rates are, at the time. It's hard to really nail it down, but I don't know, another 60,000 or something like that to build it and do all the finishings, the inside walls and floors and plumbing, sinks, all that stuff. So, all in, you might end up spending like close to $100,000 to buy land and build and finish a house in Ethiopia or in Addis Ababa. But the good news is it's something you can do over time. Obviously, you don't have to complete it all at once. If you finish one floor of your house, you can live in that portion of the house while you're finishing the rest. And I think that's what a lot of people actually do. So that's generally all I have to say about housing in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa. If you have an experience building a house in Addis or with renting in Addis, please comment below and share your experience. I would love to hear about it. I'm sure others have more to add than what I've said. And yeah, that's it. So in the next video, I'll probably be talking about some other aspect of living, but I will see you in the next one, and thank you for watching. Bye.